Today we're going to see what are the top 10 best states here in 2024. If you didn't see our last video, we did the worst 10 states in 2024. So how do you decide which is the best state? Everyone has their own opinion, so we decided to rank them using commonly searched subjects when people are looking to move. Things like crime rate, healthcare, housing costs, schools, and a bunch of other things. In total, we did 30 of the most searched stats and ranked each state by how many times they showed up in the top 10 best side of things. Here's an example. A state might be the 5th safest state, the 4th best economy, the 3rd best traffic, and the 8th best healthcare. They would get 4 points for those. In the video, I'll explain a few of the lists they were on for each state. Like I said in the last video, if I went over every single one they were in, this video would get quite tedious. Is this perfect science? No. Is it interesting? Yes. Here are the 30 most searched stats. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Nebraska. Nebraska is famous for huge open spaces, amazing views, and kind people. It isn't a southern state, but it has that southern hospitality thing down perfectly. I've always enjoyed reading stories about how the states got their start. Back in the early 2000s, I saw this documentary at a small film festival. This guy had gathered all kinds of letters and journals from families that had made the push west back in like the early 1800s. A lot of those families got to places like Nebraska, Kansas, and Iowa and found out it was perfect for farming, and they just stopped there. These were people that were on a 6 to 8 month trip heading to Oregon. These people were like 2 weeks into their trip and went, good enough. Nebraska isn't just farming though. A lot of people just think it's open wheat fields and that's it. They don't have the biggest cities, but they have amazing small towns and plenty of things to do for nature lovers. Sure, you're not gonna be hiking the Rockies here, but there's plenty of things to do. There's a creek, river, pond, lake in close proximity to wherever you are in Nebraska. I was in the Army with a guy from Arcadia, Nebraska. I always remember that because there's an Arcadia, California, near where I grew up. This guy used to just tell us great stories about hanging out on a river by his house. He always made it sound just so wonderful. But there's a lot of other positives about living in Nebraska. One of the biggest ones is they have a very low violent crime rate. The cost of living is 9% less than the US average, which makes it a perfect place for someone looking to save a buck. It's also home to like 7 or 8 Fortune 500 companies, and they always have a pretty low unemployment rate. It's usually a couple points lower than the national average, like always. All right, here's where they rank and how they got on the list. They have the 7th lowest domestic violence rate, the 7th lowest poverty rate, 8th lowest cost of living, and the 9th lowest violent crime rate in the nation. Nebraska showed up on 13 of the top 10 best lists. Number 9, South Dakota. South Dakota is a great place for people who want to save money. It's cheaper to live there because the cost of housing and the sales tax are lower than what most people in the country pay. In case you struggle with math like myself, that means you have more money for Jell-O pudding cups. The state also has some really good colleges, and that's how a lot of people end up living in South Dakota that aren't originally from there. You have the University of South Dakota, South Dakota State University, Dakota Wesleyan University, and a whole bunch of small community colleges. Another big plus is it's safer here than it is in a lot of other places in the United States. One of the biggest draws to South Dakota, though, has got to be the outdoors. South Dakota has amazing views and lots of activities, hiking, camping, all that good stuff. There's so much more to South Dakota than Mount Rushmore, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. Anyone that's not from around South Dakota or never visited, all they think is Mount Rushmore, Sturgis, and Deadwood. This is the 3rd year in a row that I've noticed that South Dakota has made it into the top 10 best states in the US. I was looking back at some of my older videos and some of the research that I had done, and they usually ended up around 14 or 15, let's say before 2019. But they're doing really good these days. South Dakota shows up as the lowest when it comes to domestic violence. There's hardly any, compared to other states, I should say. They have the 7th lowest property tax and the 4th lowest housing costs in the nation. South Dakota showed up in 13 of our 30 top 10 lists. Number 8, Massachusetts. Massachusetts is not surprising to many people who want to live in Massachusetts. Normally you've done some research and you know the state's got a lot of good things going for it. This state ranks really well in education and healthcare, according to different reports. It's home to some very famous schools like Harvard, MIT, and Boston College, which are part of an excellent education system. Plus, almost everyone in Massachusetts has health insurance, with about 96.3% of the population being covered. It's also a safe place to live because they have a lower crime rate than many other states. They do have some crime in some of the bigger cities. Obviously, cities have crime. That's just what happens. But compared to most states, they're not doing bad. In terms of jobs, it's a great place to look for a job. I mean, it's expensive, so you got to have a job. But in January of 2024, unemployment decreased by 0.5% from the previous year. And they added 18,300 new jobs in January of this year alone. One other great thing about Massachusetts is they have some of the strongest laws that protect workers. Here's some of the better lists they were on. They're second with the lowest gun violence, first when it comes to graduation rate, with 96.1% of their high school students getting out with a diploma. And they are second when it comes to income per capita. Massachusetts showed up on 14 of the top 10 best lists. Number 7, Virginia. You know, Virginia is one of those states we rarely talk about on this channel. They always seem to be middle of the road, I guess. In recent years, it's like the state's made some moves to kind of move up the best state food chain. But Virginia is a pretty cool state, and it draws a bunch of different type of people. They have a lot of great cities, a lot of amazing suburbs, and some really nice rural towns. You can go hiking along the Blue Ridge Mountains or just hang out at the beach along the Atlantic Ocean. On top of all that good stuff, Virginia was one of the original 13 colonies set up by the British in America. I almost said United States, but it wasn't the United States then, it was just America. Anyway, Virginia is packed with history. Places like Colonial Williamsburg and Jamestown are super interesting spots to go visit. Virginia's got a great economy, especially up in the northern Virginia area. It's turning into a pretty good tech center. And of course, everyone that lives up that way works for the government just about. Virginia's really interesting because it shows up normally around number 5, 6, or 7 in a lot of different lists. Here's some of the better ones they do have. They're the 5th lowest when it comes to domestic violence. They have the 4th best air quality, and they are ranked 3rd when it comes to reoffenders or recidivism, or whatever that word is. People that go back to jail after they got out. Only 23.3% of convicts go back to jail in Virginia. Now, I should mention that's people that committed secondary crimes, like a crime after they got out. A good amount of people do go back because, let's say, they didn't meet the requirements of their parole, but that's every state. But as far as people going out, robbing a bank and then robbing a bank again, rarely happens in Virginia. Virginia showed up on 16 of the top 10 lists. Number 6, Washington State. What is going on with Washington? Over the last few years, they've been number 1, 2, or 3 on lists like this. How did they get to number 6? Washington is known as the Evergreen State. It's a pretty cool place to hang out. I love Washington. Mountains, forests, the Pacific coast, epic national parks like Mount Rainier. Even though homeless have taken over Seattle, the rest of the state is pretty good. The state's economy is doing great with companies like Amazon and Microsoft being based there. Another cool thing, Washington doesn't have a state income tax. That's my personal favorite, honestly. I love that. My sister lives over in Washington. They just love the fact there's no state income tax, and if they need anything, they just come across the border into Oregon and they buy it there where there's no state sales tax. If anyone's ever thinking about moving to the Pacific Northwest and you want to save some money, my suggestion is move to one of the nicer neighborhoods in Vancouver, Washington. No state income tax, and then right across the river, you have no sales tax. It's the best of both worlds. So a lot of people just work in Portland and they'll live in Vancouver. And the real estate tends to be a little bit cheaper over in the Vancouver area. When you look at the list that Washington shows up on, they have the 6th best air quality, 5th per capita when it comes to income, and they are the 5th least obese state. They have a whole bunch of things that are middle of the road or almost in top 10 lists, like their education, their overall tax burden. No state income tax plays a big part of that one. It's a great state. They actually showed up on 16 of the top 10 best lists. Number 5, Wisconsin. Wisconsin is definitely one of my favorite states. I'd love to visit this state, especially the Madison area. Always a good time. This state knows how to have a good time. Matter of fact, they're like one of 2 states in the nation that doesn't have a drunken disorderly or drunken public law. That's perfectly fine for those people. Wisconsin offers a pretty cool mix of beautiful views, classic Midwestern vibe, and a pretty solid standard of living. It's home to the Wisconsin Dells, which I've been to a few times and I like it there. This town, for some reason, went ham and cheese on water parks. They're like all in when it comes to water parks. It's like water parks and go-karts. Mount Olympus Water Park, Atlantis Hotel, Wisconsin Dells has a water park, Wild West Water Park, Lake Wilderness Water Park, Klondike Cavern, Great Wolf Lodge. And it's like every hotel here has a big pool with some water slides there too. I mean, there's enough of them, so I'm sure they're making money. But how was that in the beginning? A business venture. I've got an idea. How about we build a water park in the middle of a state that's frozen like 4 months out of the year? Even better, we'll build these water parks in a town that already has a river flowing through it and a bunch of lakes and ponds everywhere. It's like the mayor of this town was addicted to Aquaman or something. Wisconsin is an extremely safe state, especially if you take Milwaukee out of the equation. They're the safest state. There's no serious crime in Wisconsin outside of Milwaukee. Now, I'm sure in the comment section, someone's gonna leave some comment because they're always trying to get street cred for their town whenever I say a place is safe. And it always starts off with, Briggs, you have no idea how bad it is out here in Waldo, Wisconsin. The crime is bad here. Someone stole all the ketchup from the local diner the other day. Like every single bottle. We had to eat french fries with mustard. It was horrible. The other cool thing about Wisconsin is it's slightly cheaper than the national average. So it's pretty close to average, but usually it falls a little under the national average, which is good because it's a very nice place to live. Normally, if it's below the national average or about the national average, nobody wants to live there. Hello, Indiana. Wisconsin ranks 7th in the nation with their graduation rate at 93.33% of their high school students get a diploma. 3rd when it comes to fewest natural disasters. They are 6th when it comes to their school grades, meaning overall college down to K. And they are 8th in opportunity. Wisconsin showed up on 16 of the top 10 best lists. Number 4, Idaho. Idaho is one of those states that has become incredibly popular over the last few years. It's really strange though, since I've been doing these lists, I did notice there was a little bit of a dip in 18 and 19. Then in 20, they came roaring back during the pandemic, and it's continuing. They become very popular again, like in the top 2 or 3 most moved to states. They, I think, got down to 7 at one point in 2019. Why not? Idaho's a great place to live. Right now, about 3.3% of the people in Idaho don't have jobs, which is outstanding. In February of 2024, it was just about 4%. So little over 0.5% is a big deal when you're talking about unemployment rates. Put it this way, if you are in a state that has an unemployment rate that's, let's say, 2 points or 1 point below the national average, other governors will be researching what you're doing. Idaho's become very popular with retirees because it is affordable and it is nice. Yeah, they get a little cold during the winter, but it's a nice place to live. They have low crime rate, low cost of living. It's beautiful. They don't tax your social security checks. Property taxes are pretty low. And they have some of the lowest violent crime rates in the nation. I was in Idaho, 3 weeks ago? I love Idaho. Idaho shows up on a lot of different top 10 lists. They are 4th lowest when it comes to domestic violence. They're 8th in overall crime, lowest, and the 2nd best economy growth. Their obesity rate is low, coming in 7th there. And overall, Idaho showed up on 18 of the top 10 best lists. Number 3, Vermont. Yes, Vermont is on the list, so I promise you, New Hampshire will be on this list too. No matter what is going on, no matter what we're talking about, if it's a top 10 list and Vermont's on there, so is New Hampshire. I'm still under a strong impression they just need to erase that border between the two of them and make them one big state again. And I say that every time because people leave comments telling me how dumb that thought is. So I'm just trying to get some comments here. Vermont is a really beautiful place. It's filled with mountains, forests, and lots of open countryside type spaces. It's awesome for outdoor activities like camping, fishing's pretty big there. The American Lung Association says Vermont has the cleanest air in the whole country. Yes, their air quality is number one. Now this one's an opinion. I think Vermont has the best small towns in the United States, like those cute little rural towns. What's your favorite state for small towns? Let me know in the comment section below. People always ask me what are my favorite states, and it's Oregon, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Vermont, maybe New Hampshire. To be honest, if I was single and didn't have a bunch of family here in Oregon, I would probably be living in Vermont right now. But like I said, Vermont comes in number one when it comes to air quality. They come in third when it comes to graduation rate, 94.55%, and sixth when it comes to water quality. They're also one of the safest states we have. They come in third in the nation. Great place to live. Vermont showed up on 19 of the 30 top 10 best lists. Number 2, Utah. Everybody loves Utah. It's one of the most moved to states right now. They have a great economy, low unemployment rate, and the people love a good polygamy joke. It's like their favorite. They enjoy all of them. So if you ever meet someone from Utah, give them one of those jokes. They think it's hysterical every single time. Totally kidding. They hate them. Polygamy jokes in Utah are like overdone, like suitcase and missing luggage jokes were over in the early 80s. That was the thing. Like all the early comics that I got into, like late 70s, early 80s, they always had missing luggage jokes. It was like the thing. And then everyone did them, and everyone got bored with them, sort of like polygamy jokes. Utah is a great state though. They have low crime. Even though Salt Lake City has had a little bump in crime over the last few years, overall the state has pretty low crime. They have great schools, a great healthcare system, economy is strong and growing, tons of things to do. But if you look at some of the lists they're on, they have the 6th lowest domestic violence rate, 3rd lowest unemployment rate. It normally stays around 2.1% over the last year, and it's usually close to about a half a point less than the national average. And their poverty rate, they come in second, 7.3%. Theirs was about that, let's say 4 years ago, but the poverty rate has been dropping for a lot of people. And I remember at one point, I want to say around 2019, 2020, I think it was 2021 actually, their poverty rate was almost half what the national average was at the time. Utah showed up on 20 of the top 10 best lists. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There is a link for that down below. We'd love it if you went over there and subscribed to it. Whatever we make on that channel, I add to Donors Choose, which is a charity thing for classrooms. So it just helps out other people. The more subscribers we can get, the more videos you guys watch. There is a link down below. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, New Hampshire. Yep, live free or die state, New Hampshire. Love that saying. I don't know if many people these days would actually live free or die. They might like not live free and be a little depressed. I don't think many people are going to go as far as dying anymore. Maybe New Hampshire, they're a little bit of a different breed of cat. New Hampshire is often called the live free or die state, and it's a pretty awesome place to be in the US. Just like Vermont, it's got a lot going for it. There's a lot of reasons to live here. For starters, it's super safe. If you look at all the crime rate stats across the United States, the top 3 lowest crime are always going to be Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Always been that way. Since I've been making these lists, I've never seen one of those fall out of like the top 5. There's a lot of good things going on in New Hampshire. Here's some of them. They are 7th when it comes to gun violence with 8.9 for every 100,000. They're 5th when it comes to graduation rate, 1st when it comes to literacy rate, and 2nd when it comes to unemployment rate. Right now, only 2% of New Hampshire doesn't have a job. And if you look at the people that are really looking for jobs, that's less than 1%. There's a lot of people on disability and things like that. New Hampshire showed up in 22 of the 30 top 10 best lists. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.